islands of Scotland have a rare and very special beauty, rising sharply from the sea in shapes that impress upon the eye and linger in the mind. Some are large, most are small, barely rising above the waves of the broad Atlantic Ocean which they inhabit. Among the larger islands is the Isle of Mull, considered by many to be the most beautiful. But where everything is beautiful, words like most have little meaning. Just off Mull's western shoreline lie a number of smaller islands. Travel west into the Atlantic and you come to a cluster of islands strung out like a string of pearls on the western horizon. These are the Treshnis Isles, and their close neighbour is the island of Staffa. Treshnis is a headland at the northwest corner of Mull, and it's from this area that the neighbouring islands take their name. At the northern end, closest to the Treshnis headland, are the two Carnaberg Islands, Beg and More, the little one and the big one. These islands were once garrisoned, and the remains of the fortifications can still be seen. Then there is an area with enough tiny islands and jutting, jagged rocks to test the navigational skills of any boatman who ventures into these seas. To the southwest we come to the island of Lunga, the largest of the group. And finally, at the southern end of the string of pearls is Backmore, better known as the Dutchman's Cap. Being uninhabited, the Treshnis Isles provide a safe haven for wildlife and are home to a wide variety of birds, animals and plants, some of which are rarely seen elsewhere in the British Isles. Common seals are truly common here, and you'll find them resting on any handy rocky outcrop. Towards the end of summer, Atlantic greys come ashore here to have their pups. These are among the rarest seals in the world. We're fortunate that 40% of the world's population live around the British coastline, and of these, the vast majority breed in Scottish waters, such as here in the Treshnis. Grey seals can live for up to 30 years. They feed on molluscs, crustaceans, squid, octopus, and bottom-living fish. They sense vibrations from fish with their whiskers, and one-eyed, even blind seals can survive in the wild. When they dive, they empty their lungs and reduce their heartbeat, and can stay underwater for over an hour. Female seals are very protective of their young, and it's not a good idea to get between mother and pup, or between mother and sea for that matter. Even pups, while looking weak and vulnerable, can give a bite that will take your fingers off. Mum would probably just take your arm off. Scottish folklore abounds with tales of seals which take human form when they come ashore. When you see their heads, watchful above the waves, you can imagine where the stories come from. The Treshnis are home to many thousands of seabirds. Thriving under the protection of these remote islands are a variety of gulls, shags, fulmars, kittiwakes, guillemots, razorbills, puffins, bonxies, and others. Which birds you will see will depend on the time of year that you come here. But whatever time you come, if birds are what you would like to see, then the island of Lunga should be your target destination. Once ashore, the place to head for is the Harp Rock, or Duncruit, as it's called in Gaelic. Harp Rock is separated from Lunga by a narrow but deep chasm, which gives extra protection for nesting birds. Guillemots nest here in large numbers, at least 7,000 of them according to recent counts. They jostle for space with razorbills. Kittiwakes cling precariously to tiny ledges, while shags make their nests in spaces under rocks. It's not wise to get too close to shags on their nests, especially while they're defending their chicks. These birds can spit out an oily, stinking mixture whose odour you're unlikely to forget. The Harp Rock is truly a mecca for lovers of seabirds, and an unrivalled opportunity for the keen bird photographer. But for bird photography, the ideal subject is the puffin. These birds seem to want to be photographed and are surprisingly willing to let anyone with a camera get close to them. Puffins come to Lunga in early summer. They nest in underground burrows, often those made by rabbits, and this sometimes leads to confrontations. The puffin colony is always busy. Some birds are gathering nest material which they carry down into their burrows. Others whose chicks have hatched are making constant trips to sea, returning with beaks laden with sand eels, the staple diet for their young. Puffins have short, stubby wings, which have to be flapped very rapidly to keep them airborne. So flight consumes a lot of energy. They nest at the edge of cliffs, and for takeoff, simply jump over the edge, using gravity to build up the speed they need for flying. Sadly for the photographer, they move too fast for the camera to catch them in flight. The presence of human beings does not seem to disturb puffins. Indeed, it's said that the tourists bring out the puffins rather than that the puffins bring out the tourists. It certainly seems to be true here on Lunga. This is the puffin colony on a morning before the boats arrive bringing the human visitors. There's scarcely a bird in sight. But when they sense the tramp of human feet above their burrows, out come the puffins to pose for the cameras. Early summer is also the time for wildflowers. A wide variety can be found in Lunga, from the humble buttercup to more exotic specimens, including these pink and white orchids. Fortunately, human visitors tend to confine themselves to a narrow track leading past the puffin colony and over to Harp Rock, leaving the rest of the island undisturbed. Favoured by such conditions, wildflowers carpet the island in the early weeks of summer, making it a paradise for the keen botanist. Wildlife clearly thrives in the safe havens that the uninhabited Treshnis Islands provide. But although there is no human habitation here now, it was not always so. During the 19th and probably into the early 20th century, people did live here on Lunga. These ruins were once home to up to 6 or 8 families. They must have been poor people, perhaps with a few cows and sheep, living off the land and what they could harvest from the sea. It's possible that they may have originally come here to escape from the infamous Highland clearances, when people were driven from their homes to make way for sheep and deer. these walls would have provided them with warmth and shelter. Now they only shelter these nettles. As the summer wears on, the birds leave their nests and the sea becomes their home. Their days are spent in the constant pursuit of food, with an occasional rest on rocks or on the waves. And the young birds that hatched in those early summer days now have to earn their living from the sea and from the shores of this string of islands. But wildlife on the Treshnis Isles lives not only on and above the sea, but in and under it as well. This is the fin of a basking shark, second largest fish in the world next to the whale shark, which lives in the tropics. These creatures can grow up to 30 feet. They feed on plankton and pose no threat to man. They show no fear of boats and let us get quite close. Heading homewards from the Treshnis Isles back towards Mull brings us to another pearl of these Hebridean waters, the island of Staffa. Its name comes from the Norse and means island of staffs or staves, or pillar island. The pillars are these columns of basalt rock. Columnar basalt can be seen in other parts of the world, but nowhere are they so impressive as here on Staffa. Probably the best known of the other locations is the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. Legend has it that the Irish giant Finn Mull waded across the Atlantic to Scotland, on his back a sack of rocks taken from the Giant's Causeway. Off the coast of Mull, a tear opened in the sack and out fell the rocks that became the island of Staffa. This ancient legend has proved to be prophetic. Modern geologists will tell you that the basalt rocks of Staffa and the Giant's Causeway have a similar mineral composition and are part of the same basic geological structure. And the name of that giant, Finn Mull, may well have been the origin of the name of Staffa's most famous feature, Fingal's Cave, or perhaps Finn Mull's Cave. Staffa is an island of caves. There are at least a dozen of them. On its southwestern corner is McKinnon's Cave, the largest on the island. It's difficult to get close to McKinnon's Cave either by sea or by land. Nearby, and much smaller, is the Boat Cave, set in a layer of tufa or volcanic ash. On the eastern side of the island, close to the jetty where boats land their passengers, is the Clamshell Cave. But the best known and favourite with visitors is Fingal's Cave. Thanks to a rope-protected causeway, visitors can walk right into this cave and admire its cathedral-like architecture. In here, you can perhaps sense the atmosphere that inspired Mendelssohn to compose his Hebridean Overture. If you're fortunate enough to catch a moment in here on your own, you can listen to the music of the waves and let your imagination play its own music in your mind. Mull, Staffa and the Treshnis Islands Paint the canvas of your mind with colours and shapes that will linger for a long time in your memory. And the creatures that you find here, on land, on the sea, and in the air, will return to your mind in moments of quiet recollection, calling you back here to these pearls of the Hebridean Islands.